Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're diving into a moment so many of us have faced the unexpected message from someone who once disappeared without explanation. That text, that call, that sudden "Hey, how have you been?" can stir up emotions we thought we'd buried.
But how you respond in that moment says everything about where you are in your healing, your growth, and your self-worth.
This isn't just about relationships, it's about reclaiming your power, honoring your journey, and knowing what you truly deserve.
Let's talk about what to do when he reaches out after silence, and how to stay rooted in your value.
When he reaches out after silence, your emotions might come flooding in like a tidal wave. There's that rush of adrenaline, the notification on your phone, his name popping up after days, weeks, maybe even months of nothing. It's confusing. Part of you might feel relief. Part of you might feel angry. Part of you might even feel hopeful. And it's in this cocktail of emotion that people make some of their biggest mistakes. The most important thing you can do in that moment is pause. Don't respond right away. Don't feed the urge to get answers or to fill the silence that's been hanging in the air. Give yourself a moment to understand why you want to respond. Are you trying to get validation? Are you hoping he'll finally say the words you wanted to hear before? Or are you trying to prove that you're unaffected? Because if the desire to respond is coming from a need for closure or validation, you're already giving your power away. You're allowing the same person who disappeared to now decide the tempo of your emotions. But when you pause, when you breathe before you act, you shift the dynamic. You move from being reactive to being reflective. That silence you give yourself is incredibly powerful. It's where you can ask the real questions, not about him but about you. How have you been feeling since he left? What did that silence reveal about your connection? Did his absence create peace, or did it leave you constantly anxious and second-guessing yourself? See, we often romanticize a reconnection. We turn it into a fairy tale moment. He came back. Maybe he realized he made a mistake. But the truth is, people reach out for all kinds of reasons. Loneliness, guilt, boredom, convenience. The fact that someone comes back doesn't automatically mean they've grown. It doesn't mean they're ready, and it certainly doesn't mean they deserve immediate access to you. But when you don't pause, when you respond in that emotional rush, you bypass your own clarity. You short-cut your healing. You give weight to a moment that might not deserve it. And worse, you allow someone else's reappearance to dictate your value. You're not an option waiting to be revisited. You're a person who's allowed to protect your peace. So the next time that message pops up and your stomach flips, just remember, you don't owe anyone an instant reply. You owe yourself a moment to decide if this contact aligns with your growth, your boundaries, and your self-respect. That pause might be the very thing that protects your heart from repeating the same mistake twice. Just because someone reaches out to you doesn't mean they're ready to show up for you. It's one of the hardest truths to accept, especially when you've been missing them, wondering if they'd ever come back, hoping that maybe the silence meant they were figuring things out. But when that message finally comes through, or that call lights up your screen, it's easy to confuse what it means. And too often, we confuse attention with intention. Attention is easy. It's a text. It's a "Hey, how have you been?" It's someone checking in late at night or dropping a nostalgic comment to stir your emotions. It's the kind of contact that lights a small fire but doesn't warm the room. Intention, on the other hand, is follow through, its clarity, its consistent action that says, "I know what I want,
and I'm here to show it.
You have to be really honest with yourself in that moment. Ask, asterisk, what is he really offering me?
Asterisk, because when someone goes silent and then reappears with a casual message, it's tempting to fill in the blanks for them. We project our hopes. We imagine this is the beginning of something new, something better, but a message isn't a plan. A check-in isn't a commitment, and a moment of attention doesn't erase the weeks or months of silence that came before it. People can come back simply because they miss the asterisk feeling asterisk of you, not the asterisk responsibility asterisk of being with you.
They might remember how you made them feel cared for, desired, important, and sometimes reaching out is just a way of scratching that itch. But the question you need to ask yourself is, asterisk, what do I want? Asterisk, not just from this person, but from any connection.
Because if you're looking for love that is secure, consistent, and respectful, you can't settle for someone who only appears when it's convenient for them.
It's very easy to fall into the trap of reading into every word, every emoji, every delay between responses.
But if someone wants to be in your life in a meaningful way, they make it clear. You don't have to decode mixed signals.
You don't have to wonder whether you're being led on or left hanging. Someone with real intention creates emotional safety, not confusion.
So when he reaches out, don't let the attention blind you. Take a step back and ask whether he's shown any sign of real growth, any effort to rebuild trust, or just enough charm to reel you back in.
Because your heart deserves more than a brief moment. It deserves consistency. And if someone can't meet you with that kind of energy, they're not showing up for you. They're showing up for themselves.
Let their actions speak, not just their words, and don't let temporary attention distract you from your long-term peace.
When someone reaches out after a period of silence, it's natural to shift all your attention toward them. What does he want? Why now? What does this mean? But there's a more important question that gets overlooked in all the noise. Asterisk, who have you become since he left? Asterisk, that silence wasn't just an absence, it was an opportunity. It gave you space to rebuild, to heal, and to come back to yourself.
It's easy to get pulled into their reappearance and forget your own progress. You might think, asterisk, maybe this is what I was waiting for. Maybe this is our second chance. Asterisk, but before you even entertain that idea, stop and look at the journey you've been on. Remember the nights you cried, but got up anyway. The mornings you didn't want to get out of bed, but you did.
The times you chose to focus on your own growth instead of chasing answers from someone who wasn't showing up. That matters, and it's in that space between his silence and his return that something really valuable was happening.
You were rediscovering your worth. You were learning to give yourself what you once looked to him to provide: love, validation, consistency.
That is not small. That's the work. And when he reappears, if you're not grounded in that progress, you'll forget how far you've come. You'll slip right back into measuring your value by his presence instead of by your own healing.
Here's the thing: when you've done the inner work, when you've really faced the pain and rebuilt from it, you start to realize that his message doesn't carry the same weight anymore. You see it for what it is, not a lifeline, but just a moment. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can revert to who you were when he left, or you can respond from the stronger, more self-aware person you've become. You don't need to prove anything to him, not how well you're doing, not how unaffected you are, not how kind or forgiving you can be. The only thing you owe yourself is honesty about what you need now, and whether letting him back into your world supports that. Just because someone resurfaces doesn't mean they deserve access to the new you, especially not if they disappeared when you needed them most. You've done too much work to hand your peace back to someone who didn't protect it the first time. Growth doesn't always look like forgiveness or reuniting. Sometimes growth looks like saying, I've changed and I no longer accept what I used to tolerate. His message might stir emotions, but it doesn't rewrite your progress. Let who you've become guide what you do next. Every time you respond to someone, you're teaching them something. Every time you allow behavior, you're setting a standard, whether you realize it or not. So when he disappears without explanation and then reaches out like nothing happened, how you respond is more than just a message back. It's a message about you. It's telling him what is and isn't acceptable in how he treats you. We all want to believe in second chances. We want to believe that people can change, that maybe this time it'll be different. But the truth is, most people don't change unless they're given a reason to. And if someone learns that they can vanish, avoid accountability, and still be welcomed back with open arms, why would they do anything differently? Why would they step up, grow, or communicate better if the same access is always available without effort? This isn't about being cold. It's not about playing games or punishing anyone. It's about communicating your value without even having to say the words. Boundaries are the loudest form of self-respect. They're how you show people how to treat you, not through ultimatums, but through your actions. When you make it clear that disappearing and reappearing isn't acceptable, you're not being harsh, you're being clear. A lot of people are afraid that if they set boundaries, they'll scare someone off. But here's the truth. The right person isn't scared by your standards, they're inspired by them. And the wrong person, they're only there because they benefit from your lack of boundaries. They thrive on the hope that no matter how they behave, you'll still be there, still available, still responding. You have to decide what story you want to write with your response. Are you reinforcing a pattern where he learns he can disappear and come back whenever he feels like it? Or are you making it clear that your time, your energy, and your heart are not revolving doors? The moment you stop accepting inconsistent behavior is the moment people realize they can't just treat you casually. They either rise to meet your standards or they walk away. And if they walk away, let them. That's not rejection, that's clarity. That's someone showing you they were never going to be the consistent, present, emotionally available partner you deserve. Every response is a lesson. It's not about what you say, it's about what your actions communicate. You get to set the tone. You get to decide what behavior is rewarded with your attention and what isn't. And the more you choose actions that reflect your worth, the less you'll tolerate anything that contradicts it. One of the hardest parts of a breakup, especially when someone disappears without explanation, is the lack of closure. We crave it. We tell ourselves we need that final conversation, that clear ending, something that helps us understand why it happened. So when he finally reaches out after all that silence, a part of you might feel like, this is my chance. Now I'll get the answers. Now I'll get the closure I never had. But here's the truth. Silence is already an answer. We think closure is about hearing the right words, that somehow, if he just says why he left, or admits he made a mistake, or gives us some kind of explanation, we'll finally be at peace. But real closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you create for yourself. His silence may not have been the answer you wanted, but it was asterisk information. It showed you how he handles distance, discomfort, or disconnection. And that tells you more about his emotional capacity than any explanation ever could. We give so much weight to someone coming back. We think, asterisk, if he came back, he must have realized something. He must care. Asterisk, but sometimes people return not because they want to fix things, but because they miss the feeling of being wanted. They miss the version of themselves that existed in your eyes. That's not closure, that's reopening a wound. When you interpret silence as unfinished business instead of a boundary, you leave the door open to confusion and false hope. But when you accept that the silence told you what words couldn't, you begin to reclaim your power. You start realizing that someone who could leave without clarity may not have the emotional maturity to offer it now either. And that's not your burden to carry. It's tempting to believe that a conversation will make it all make sense. But more often than not, those conversations don't deliver what we hope they will. They rarely bring peace. They often leave us with even more questions, or worse, reopen feelings we've worked so hard to move past. You don't need a perfect ending to move on. You need a decision, asterisk, your asterisk decision, to stop waiting for someone else to validate your pain or your healing. You don't need his explanation to define what the relationship meant. You already lived it. You felt what you felt. You know what you gave, what you endured, and what you learned. That's enough. Let go of the idea that closure comes wrapped in neat conversations and thoughtful texts. Sometimes the most powerful closure is your silence in return. When you know your worth, truly know it, everything changes, including the way you respond when someone who left suddenly decides to come back. You stop seeing their message as some magical sign of fate, and instead you start asking yourself better questions. Not asterisk, should I reply, asterisk but asterisk. Does this add to my peace, my progress, and the life I'm building? Asterisk, that's the difference between reacting from insecurity and responding from self-worth. Because when you don't value yourself deeply, you look outward for reassurance. You want proof that you were enough, that he still thinks about you, that you mattered. And so when he reaches out, it hits that part of you that still wants to feel chosen. But self-worth doesn't wait to be chosen, it chooses itself. It doesn't need someone to validate its existence. It asterisk knows asterisk its value, even when it's not being acknowledged. Think about how far you've come. Think about the work you've done to feel okay on your own again. That didn't happen overnight. That came through discomfort, through pain, through hard lessons. You learned to sit with the silence, to calm the anxious questions, to stop checking your phone for a message that never came. And now that it asterisk has asterisk come, what do you want to do with that progress? If you go back to someone just because they finally gave you attention, you're telling yourself that your healing was negotiable. But it's not. That time you spent rebuilding your confidence, learning to trust yourself again, finding joy in things outside of them, that's sacred. And someone reappearing doesn't get to wipe that away just because it's convenient for them. The beauty of self-worth is that it gives you clarity. You don't need to ask 100 people what to do. You don't need to overanalyze every word in his message. You simply feel the answer, and most of the time that answer is quiet, calm, and deeply rooted in peace. Not in drama, not in fantasy, just truth. When you operate from self-worth, you stop trying to prove anything. You're not trying to show how strong you are, or how unaffected, or how desirable. You don't need to make a point. You just choose what aligns with your growth, and you leave behind what doesn't. And maybe the message he sent you deserves a response.
Maybe it doesn't. That's not really the point. The point is, are you making your decision from a place of wholeness, or are you still trying to fill the space he left behind?
When self-worth is in the room, it answers for you.